Hey guys, STLYoungblood with you, and what I want to do in this video today is kind of create a very general, explain it like I'm 5, which is a Reddit thing if you don't know. What is Star Citizen? So I'm going to kind of go through and just explain some elements about the game and why it's so interesting and why I'm pretty excited for the game to come out. So let's just start. At the most basic, it's a persistent universe space simulator / adventure game. Now, you're going to fly in first person for the most part. You fight other players. You're going to fight NPCs. But there's a lot more to it than that. And we're going to get into a lot of that as well. So first off, the game is it's not free to play. So it doesn't have the pay to win model. It's a non-subscription model, so it's not like EVE in that aspect. Basically, just you buy your way into the game and you're set. Now, Star Citizen is going to come with a game called Squadron 42, and that's a single-player campaign that you can play with friends. That being said, I'm only really going to be covering and talking about the persistent universe, the multiplayer aspect of the game, because that's the piece I've kind of been able to get more information on and the piece I'm most excited about. So in most games, your main focus is to level up your character, and that progression is really what's going to give you that sense of accomplishment. Star Citizen is different though. You're not leveling up yourself, you're focusing on increasing the abilities and capabilities of your craft. You're working to increase your fleet size, and you're enjoying the aspects of a space simulator sandbox, a just massively open environment. So let's go ahead and start out with the thing that probably most everybody wants to know about, and that's going to be the ships. You know, where it stands right now, they have around 15 ships announced. Some other ones that we know are in the works. And a lot of these ships actually have multiple variants. So ships can take on certain roles, or they can just be kind of all-around crafts. You know, for example, the Aurora, which is basically your starter ship, but that in itself can take on about 5 different variants, with all of them specializing in something different: exploration, fighter, interceptor, merchant, etc. And just because you've picked one of those variants that starts out as specializing in one category doesn't mean that you're going to be unable to add or remove hardware, basically making the ship exactly what you want it to be. A lot of customization that's going to kind of suit your roles in different ways. So your ships are going to range from small single-seaters to very large carriers and corvettes that are designed to house, numerous players and NPC. Ships are all going to be made of various different parts, different components that all create your ship. So you've got things like the power plant, which is going to supply all of your ship's needs, and it's really going to be like the heart of your ship. You may not be able to power full shields and full weapons at the same time, so routing power between your different systems could be a crucial part of the experience. The avionics package that you have on your ship is basically the supercomputer behind your ship, making all the different calculations. Now, this could be routing power from shields to life support, or maybe to your engines. It could help you with your targeting, and can even scan enemy ships for their cargo. So there's different various roles that you can take on depending on what you actually choose to put on your ship, and all the avionics packages can be a little bit different. Now, your ship's mobility is controlled by a couple different types of thrusters. The main thrusters can really be thought of as your standard engine that will continue to propel you forward at a speed that's going to be determined by the weight of your ship, the weight of your cargo, the size of your engines, etc. Now, straight line traveling is great, but now you actually need to have maneuvering thrusters, which are actually placed all around your ship, and basically that makes small adjustments, and they play a critical role in turning, yawing, and all the different pitch and maneuvers that you would do. So a smaller ship with more maneuvering thrusters is going to be quite a bit more nimble than a bigger ship with fewer thrusters, and that's kind of some of the things that are going to dictate some of the interactions you have with other ships. Now, there's going to be a lot of other components to your ships, but the ones that most people are probably interested in is going to be your hardpoints. And these are essentially the places where you're going to mount your weapons. You have various classes of hardpoints, which can allow you to have forward-facing guns, some that are like articulated, gimbal-mounted guns that move around. Some can mount external fuel tanks or missile pods. And some are just going to be turrets that can either be manned by another player, an NPC, or even just another, maybe by you controlling it on your ship, or maybe the ship does its own targeting. There's different types of classes that fit the weapons in different ways. Now, the number of ways that you can customize your ship is really kind of mind-blowing, but it's pretty clear that there's not going to be just one best loadout. Just the one that's best for the role that you're going to be taking on at that very moment. So Star Citizen has an economy within it, and that's something that's going to be a big part of what dictates the flow of the system. So let's say we've got a factory that's producing starships. Well, in order to make starships, they're going to need metal alloys, avionics, etc. Well, players then can choose to either take on missions, which could either just be transporting, maybe mining, maybe it's protecting shipments, you're taking on an escort role. The players are then going to be paid for their efforts for successful missions. So let's say there's pirates that are running rampant, and all of a sudden alloy is hard to come by. That may mean that we see an increase in prices around the system for certain products that are dependent on that alloy. Or we just may see the fact that the items become more scarce and harder to find, and following the product of, or the the theory of capitalism, when the products are low, the price goes high. Basically, player decisions and interactions, and even those of NPC, are going to have a direct impact on the economy for everybody. Now, within this universe, there is a police force known as the UEE. They're basically going to monitor players and ensure that they're following rules, maintaining their ships, not using forbidden equipment, all sorts of different things. Now, if you choose to use this stuff that may be illegal, sometimes you might get off with a warning. Other times it may be as severe as being fined or even engaged. So it's going to be important to remember in this game, there's consequences for your actions. Your actions may not necessarily be the wrong ones, but you need to be aware of what could happen because you've made that decision. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, how are you actually going to be finding other players, and how do instances work, and how do they happen? Well, Star Citizen is using what they call the Galaxy server, and that keeps track of player locations and what they're up to. Now, the server doesn't actually power the game, just all the data behind it. Now, we need to think realistically, and in a game like this, with the incredible graphics and the scale of everyone being in the same universe, it's impossible for PCs to kind of keep up and render everything that's happening in these areas. It would just be madness. So, with that in mind, this is where the Galaxy and the Instant system come into play. And when you're traveling, the system is going to be aware of those that are in your organization, what your personal mission is, what you're aiming to do, and based on your travels and other factors, the system will then instance other players in your area. Now, in reality, there could be thousands of players in one sector of space, but, based on what you're actually doing and your circumstances, it could maybe be closer to dozens that you're actually aware of. If the current instances are completely full, then the system's automatically going to dynamically create a new one and start filling it with other people. Now, this all gets really complicated on how this all works, but I think what people want to know is how this works when you're flying with your friends. Basically, you can or you will tag your friends as POI, or persons of interest, and the Galaxy system will keep you all together. That means you'll be pulled into instances with your friends against maybe other players or NPC that happen to be chosen based on the information at hand. Every instance saves room for your friends to jump in. So let's say you're being engaged by a superior force, you can call for help from your friends. Now, if they're in your system, they can jump in and help. If they're in a different system, that means they can help, but they need to be able to get to you before that battle instance is over. In my mind, traveling with a wingman suddenly sounds like a pretty good idea. Now, while most of this game is going to be taking place in space while flying and dogfighting, there are some FPS elements at play here too. Players are going to have the ability to board enemy ships and fight, just fight it out within the enemy ship. That being said, Mr. Roberts claims that he doesn't really want this to become Grand Theft Starship, which I thought was pretty funny. So it's not going to be something that's going to be super common. And even then when it does happen, it's going to be challenging but rewarding. So in order to board an enemy ship, you're going to have to first completely disable it. Then you're going to need a very specialized ship that will allow you to use a tractor beam in and then use your docking collar to actually get on board. And then I've even heard that inside the ships there may be weapon systems that make it even more challenging. Bottom line, don't be expecting to be jumping into ships nonstop. It's going to be more of a fun little side gig. That being said, there are other FPS elements too. So think about this: you're meeting your organization on a bar, at a bar on a planet, and you happen to notice a player who has a bounty on their head. If you're taking on a bounty role, or a bounty hunter role, go get the man. You may get some money as a result. Sometimes that may involve you fighting that person. Other times they may go peacefully, but not knowing is going to be some of the fun. So speaking of bounty hunters, let's talk about some of the roles you can personally take on in game. Players and NPC are going to get under people's skin, and when that happens, you're going to expect to see bounties placed on, their head for their death or maybe bringing them to justice. In all likelihood, these are going to be pirates that are needed to be brought to justice, but then again, Say you're a good guy that just happens to be a fighter ace that tends to kill pirates. Who's to say that they don't put a bounty on you? It's a pretty good question. Now, pirates and privateers are going to be looking to get a profit any way they can see fit. So they may jump ships out in the open. They may, hail you and say that they want your goods, or they may just force their way in and take them. Now, if you don't engage a pirate, they may just take your loot and leave you be and not damage your ship or anything. Then again, how can you really trust a pirate? They may just kill you afterwards and still make off with your loot, even if they said they were going to leave you alone. So there's going to be downsides to being a pirate, though. If you're an outlaw, you're going to have a hell of a time buying certain products from the UEE. Maybe you want a new destroyer or cruiser that comes out, but do you really think they're going to sell that to a known outlaw? Now, there's obviously other ways to get what you want, and pirates know this. Sometimes force is the only way, and if you really want to get what you need to, maybe you board the ship and just steal it. There's countless other roles that you can kind of specialize in this game and take part of. You can be a smuggler moving illegal parts from the UEE to pirates. You can be an explorer mapping the system and naming certain new places after yourself. You could even be a peaceful merchant, a fuel delivery boy, etc. The list is really too long, but you're getting the general idea. The sky's the limit on your options, and that pun was only a little bit intended. So that's the basic gist of what you can expect from this game. There's a whole lot more detail that we could go into, but at this point it would just be a little bit redundant. So as far as the timeline's concerned, we're looking to see the dogfighting module released in April, basically meaning that you're going to get to test out your ships for the first time. That's going to be followed by the alpha and the beta. Now, full release isn't planned until 2015, so there is a lot of time between now and then, but there's also a lot more content that's going to be released. And there's a lot of good reasons to be excited about the game. So, as of the production of this video, there's about 7,000 slots left for the alpha and beta, so if you're interested in getting in early, it might be time to get off the pot. That doesn't mean they're not going to add more slots later on, but for right now, that's about where it stands. So, stay tuned to my channel for a lot more information. I'll catch you guys later and let you know if there's anything else. So, take care.